Hello and welcome. I'm so glad you're here. In today's episode, I'll share with you how I improved my English using a powerful technique called shadowing. This story is perfect for practicing your listening while learning something truly helpful. So, find a quiet place, get comfortable, and let's begin this journey together. I still remember the first time I heard the term shadowing in the context of language learning. I was watching a video online, and the speaker mentioned it so casually, as if everyone knew what it meant, but at that point, I had no idea what it was, and I was too curious to ignore it, so I paused the video, looked it up, and found out that shadowing is a technique where you repeat what you hear in real time, ideally with a slight delay, imitating the speaker's pronunciation, rhythm, and intonation as closely as possible. And I was instantly intrigued because I had always struggled with speaking English fluently, often finding myself stuck between knowing the words and not being able to pronounce them correctly or fast enough, so this technique sounded like the bridge I needed to cross that gap, and I decided then and there that I would dedicate myself to learning English through shadowing, starting with simple materials and gradually working my way up, so I chose a short TED Talk for my first attempt, picked one that had subtitles, and I listened to the speaker's first few sentences over and over again, repeating them as I heard them, and I noticed right away how hard it was at the beginning because my tongue didn't move fast enough, and I couldn't keep up with the speaker, but instead of getting discouraged, I slowed the video down and kept practicing until I could match the speaker's pace, even at 75% speed, and I repeated that small section maybe 10 times until I felt a little more comfortable, and from there I kept going, gradually increasing the speed, until I could shadow the first paragraph at normal speed, and I realized how powerful this method was for training not just pronunciation but also listening, because I had to pay very close attention to every sound, every stress pattern, and even how the speaker connected words, which helped me understand real spoken English better, and after just a week of daily practice, I started noticing small improvements in my speaking confidence, especially during conversations with friends or coworkers, where I could now respond more smoothly and naturally, and that motivated me to make shadowing a part of my daily routine, so I set aside 30 minutes every morning to practice before work, using a variety of materials like podcasts, interviews, YouTube videos, and even short movie clips, always choosing content that interested me so that I wouldn't get bored, and I noticed that when I was more emotionally involved in the topic, I retained more and improved faster, and one of my favorite sources became motivational speeches because the speakers usually had clear, powerful voices and used a lot of expressive intonation, which made it easier and more engaging to imitate, and over time I learned to imitate not just the words but also the emotions behind them, and this gave me more control over my tone and made my speech sound more natural and less robotic, and that's when I realized that shadowing wasn't just about parroting words, it was about training your brain, your ears, and your mouth to work together in harmony, creating a kind of muscle memory that made speaking feel more automatic, and one thing I began doing that helped a lot was recording myself as I shadowed, then comparing my version to the original, listening carefully to the differences in pronunciation, rhythm, and intonation, and taking notes on areas I needed to improve, which gave me a clear picture of my progress and kept me motivated, and sometimes I would shadow a single sentence over and over for 10 minutes just to master one difficult sound or stress pattern, and those micro-practices added up over time and helped me internalize the natural flow of English, especially when it came to things like connected speech, where native speakers blend words together, and I started to pick up on contractions, reductions, and even the way people pause or change their tone depending on the meaning they want to express, and little by little, these observations became part of my own speech, and people began noticing the difference, telling me that I sounded more fluent, more native-like, and that was incredibly encouraging, so I kept going, experimenting with different types of materials and even shadowing conversations from TV shows or movies, which was more challenging because the language was more casual and spontaneous, but I found it really valuable because it taught me how English is spoken in real life, not just in formal settings, and I also discovered that shadowing dialogues helped me prepare for actual conversations because I would learn common expressions, question forms, and even how to interrupt politely or show agreement naturally, and sometimes I would pause the video after hearing a phrase I liked and practice it 10 times, trying to say it with the exact same rhythm and feeling. And soon I started using those expressions in my own conversations without even thinking about it, which made me feel more confident and more connected to the language, and at one point I decided to take it a step further by creating my own shadowing scripts based on topics I cared about, like travel, learning, or productivity, and I would write short texts, record myself reading them clearly and slowly, then shadow my own voice to practice delivering my thoughts more fluently. And that gave me a sense of ownership and helped me speak more naturally when talking about things that mattered to me, and as my confidence grew, I began shadowing live audio, like radio broadcasts or live YouTube streams, which pushed my listening and speaking abilities to the limit because there were no subtitles and no way to pause, but it trained me to stay focused, to listen actively, and to respond quickly, and though I made mistakes, I learned not to be afraid of them, because shadowing is not about being perfect, it's about building fluency, one sentence at a time, and over the months, shadowing helped me reduce my accent, speak with better rhythm, and even understand fast English more easily, because I had trained my brain to keep up with the flow of spoken language, and what surprised me the most was how shadowing also improved my listening comprehension, especially in noisy environments or when someone had a different accent, because I had practiced so many voices, from American to British to Australian, that I became more adaptable and less dependent on subtitles, and I started to enjoy watching series without reading along, just listening and absorbing the language naturally, and it felt amazing to understand jokes, sarcasm, and emotional tones that I used to miss before, and through shadowing, I also learned a lot about pronunciation rules and phonetics without even studying them formally, just by mimicking native speakers. And I realized that our brains are great at picking up patterns when we give them the right input and repetition, and that's exactly what shadowing does. It gives your brain real, meaningful patterns to follow, which is why I believe it works so well for learners at any level, and if I had to give advice to anyone starting with shadowing, I'd say start small, choose something interesting, don't worry about making mistakes, and be consistent, because the real power of shadowing lies in the habit, not in the perfection. And even just 10 minutes a day can make a difference if you stick with it. And now, looking back, I can confidently say that shadowing was the turning point in my English journey, the method that finally helped me break through the barrier between passive knowledge and active fluency, and today I continue to use it not just to maintain my skills but to explore new accents, new topics, and even other languages, because the technique is so versatile, and I truly believe that shadowing is one of the best ways to train your mouth, your ears, and your brain to work in sync, and the best part is, you don't need fancy tools or expensive courses, all you need is your voice, your curiosity, and the willingness to keep speaking even when it feels hard, because every repetition brings you one step closer to fluency, and as someone who used to feel shy and frustrated about speaking English, I can tell you with absolute certainty that shadowing changed everything for me. It gave me the confidence to express myself, the ability to understand others more clearly, and the joy of feeling like I truly belong in the language I once struggled to speak. Thank you so much for listening. I hope my story has inspired you to try shadowing and keep pushing forward in your English journey. Remember, progress comes with practice, and you're doing great just by showing up. Take care, keep learning, and I'll see you in the next episode.